Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into CAEL Live. Today, we're talking about new grad resumes. Hello again. If you're joining us for the first time today, CAEL Live is an interactive series where we guide you through your journey to Canada as an international student. We talk about international student life, admissions, and much more. We will also, of course, be talking about the CAEL test. So if you're an international student looking to study in Canada, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be notified about our new episodes. In today's episode, we've invited yet another expert to help you with your job search here in Canada. Nilu, who is the career advisor at Alexander College, is here to help new graduates with their resumes. How can you, as a fresh graduate, compete with talent that already has work experience? Let's go find out. Hello, Nilu. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Nilu has been kind enough to create a presentation for us today. But before I let you get started, Nilu, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Yeah, thank you so much. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for the introduction. My name is Nilu, and I'm a career advisor with Alexander College. I work a lot with international students, and I'm here today to talk to you about some of the tips that we might be able to help you with your resume. I know that a lot of students coming to Canada are wanting to stay in Canada and look for work after graduation. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you with anything career related and hopefully be able to give you some tips to take your resumes to the next level.
Wonderful. I'm going to let you get started.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay.
Sorry, Neil, just 1 second. Sorry to interrupt you. For those of you who are watching, please let us know in the comments below if you have any questions about resumes or new graduate resumes, and Neil will answer it for you after her presentation. Okay, Neil, all yours.
Okay, thank you again. So I just wanted to, just 1 second here. Seems like my computer is frozen, so just bear with me 1 moment here. Okay, seems like it's working again. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction as what does a career advisor do before we get started, so you know what services are provided to you when you work with a career advisor. So if you're ready to talk about job search and if you're looking for guidance for your career path, a career advisor is here to help you. Working with a career advisor, I find it's very beneficial for especially international students because we can help you with a variety of different services that we provide, such as resume and cover letter writing, networking tips, career exploration. So a lot of students come to us and say, I'm taking this associate degree or I'm taking this bachelor degree and I don't know what to do after I graduate. What career options are available? So a career exploration, we can sit down together and explore those options for you. Work search strategies. So what are some of the best ways you can look for work? Volunteering, community building. As you know, coming to Canada and not having any Canadian experience is a big factor when it comes to looking for work. So you can maybe, connect with other employers or other people through volunteer and community building, interview tips and practicing mock interviews. So we can sit down together with a career advisor, with myself, and we can practice some mock interviews. Setting up a LinkedIn account. A lot of students don't know, are not familiar with LinkedIn, or they've created a LinkedIn, maybe 5 years ago, and they've never really updated. So setting up a LinkedIn account or updating your LinkedIn account. And then obviously professional school applications. So if you're wondering on how to answer those tough questions for, UBC and SFU entry type of questions, a career advisor can definitely help you with that as well. Sorry, 1 second here. Seems like I'm having a bit of issues with my laptop again. So just bear with me 1 second while I get this going here.
No worries, guys. This is something that happens to us all the time. Laptop issues. Neil will. As you can see, there's already a great presentation. So just hold on a little bit.
Okay, sorry, I'm back again. So again, my name is Nilu, and I am a career advisor with Alexander College. I have a bachelor's in communication, a career development practitioner certification, and the Myers-Briggs type indicator certification, which will allow you to be able to decide on what type of career path is suitable for your personality type. So I want to talk to you about some of the 6 reasons of why you're not getting callbacks and what to do next. So before I get into some of the resume do's and don'ts, I want to talk a little bit about if you're looking for work as an international student or anybody as even a Canadian citizen, and you're looking for work and you're not getting any callbacks, why is that and what to do next? So one of the reasons a lot of students may not feel like they're getting callbacks or might not even apply for work is because they think they're not qualified. I always say, if you are qualified, if you have 60% of the qualifications that the employer is looking for, then you are definitely able to apply for the position. When an employer creates a job description, they're looking for their dream person. So they know that most probably a person that applies for that position is not going to have all of the qualification and skills that they're writing in that job description. If you have 60% of that, then you're definitely qualified. A lot of students specifically don't apply for work because they take a look at the job description and they feel extremely intimidated by that. I always say, like I said, if you have 60% of that, you are more than qualified. And if you don't have 60% of that, think of other creative ways that you can maybe gain some of those skills in order to reflect on that in your resume, such as maybe doing volunteer work or maybe doing a starter position, maybe doing an entry-level type of positions. I understand that a lot of international students coming to Canada, they have, lots of years of experience back home, and then coming to Canada, they want to jump into the type of position that they were doing back home. However, that might not necessarily be possible because there are some barriers that they might need to cross over in order to be able to get those jobs that they were doing, when they were in their home country. So maybe thinking of some starter positions, that's another thing that would be able to help you. Another reason might be your resume isn't formatted properly. That's where a career advisor comes in. Make sure that your resume, especially when you're new to Canada, make sure that your resume is reviewed by a career advisor. I know it might be very tempting to have friends and family take a look at your resume, or people that have been living in Canada for quite some time. And that's a great solution when you already know that you have a really good resume. That might be an additional step for them to be able to proofread your resume. But you want to make sure that the career advisor takes a look at your resume and make sure that the formatting is proper. Formatting is very important. It makes it easy to read, makes it easy on the eyes for the employer. And you want to make sure that you use specific words out of the job description that is suitable and targeting your resume. So I always say in Europe and in the Middle East, we have a CV. A CV is any job you've ever had, any education you've ever had on one document. It's basically your work and education history. However, in North America, we use, especially in Canada and the States, we use a resume. A resume is more targeted, meaning that you pick and choose your education and your qualification, your work experiences that are suitable for that position. So in other words, you're targeting your resume. So I always say, imagine if you had a big bag full of your education and your work experiences. You don't take the whole bag to the employer and say, this is who I am. You pick and choose which one is matching to that specific job. And that's what you put on your resume to present to the employer. Another thing is you haven't followed up with them. Maybe call them or email them. Make sure that they have received your resume and your cover letter. Show that you're interested in that position. Nowadays, people just apply online through all these different websites, even if it's the company website, and you may get lost in translation or transition. So you want to make sure that you're definitely making sure that the employer has reviewed your application, they have received it, and that takes it to the more personal level, taking that extra step, that human contact, that they know that they've received your resume, that you're actually interested in that position, and you're not just sending your resume to multiple employers without actually, caring about the company, that you specifically want to work for that specific company. So that's another thing to take considered. Another thing is your resume is different from your online profile. So I always say make sure your LinkedIn account is up to date. If you're including your LinkedIn profile information on your resume, make sure that your LinkedIn is up to date, it's matching with your resume. And even if you're not, nowadays employers will take a look at your LinkedIn profile most probably. They most probably will do that. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn and your resume are matching. You don't have one thing listed on your LinkedIn account and another thing listed on your resume, that they're both in sync, the years are matching, the employer, the job titles are matching, the employer, companies are matching, all of that. That's what you want to make sure. And then companies have received over 500 resumes for one job posting, and yours is, $4.99. So you want to make sure, if you're looking for a job, that you understand that looking for a job is a full-time job. So that's one of the things I always say, is that it's not easy for sure. I understand that. And that's what a career advisor comes in. We're here to help you navigate what is the best way to look for work in your specific industry. But you also have to understand that employers receive so many resumes for one job posting that it might take a while for them to get back to you. Don't feel too anxious or too nervous, and constantly want to follow up with them. It's good to follow up maybe once, but more than that, I've had students where, they call an employer every week, for example, to follow up with them because they're feeling really anxious and they want that kind of, assurance from the employer that they've reviewed their resume or what's happening with their application. You want to try to avoid that, because that might give the wrong message to the employer, and they may say, this person is, maybe a little too much, anxious in regards to the position, and that might make you disqualified. So you want to make sure that you have a good understanding that employers receive lots of resumes, and by reviewing all of those resumes, it's going to take some time. And so now I want to talk about some general resume do's and don'ts. So when it comes to writing your resume, like I said, you want to make sure that you're targeting your resume. So you customize your resume every time. So that means that every time you apply for a new position, you have to rewrite your resume. I know it's a lot of work, and that's why we say finding a job is a full-time job. You want to make sure that you're customizing your resume to that specific job. I always describe it as, let's say, if you're in a bookstore and you're looking for an Italian cookbook, and you see this, European cookbook, but you're not sure if it's specifically Italian or not, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to open up the book and read the chapter titles in order to understand if it's an Italian cookbook or a French cookbook, and you start reading the book and it says French pastries, baguettes, French onion soup, and you say, oh, this is French. I was looking for Italian. So that's your resume. You want to make sure when you're writing your resume, it's targeted for that specific employer. If they're looking for Italian, you're going to be Italian, basically. You want to highlight your achievements. So you definitely want to highlight the achievements that the employer is looking for. You want to note your accomplishments. Make sure that you're not disvaluing your accomplishments. I always say to international students, the fact that you're, coming to Canada, or you're wanting to come to Canada, the fact that you speak a second language, those are achievements. Those are, your highlights of your resume, especially in a country like Canada, or, a city like Vancouver. There's so many international students. There's so many international, people living here. Knowing a second language is definitely going to be to your advantage. So you want to make sure that's one thing that you highlight in your resume. proofread and proofread again. So like I said, once you work with a career advisor and you know that your formatting is correct and you have your resume ready to go, you want to make sure that you proofread it, but that's the time when you want to connect with your friends and family for them to proofread it as well. I know that most probably when a career advisor, works with you on your resume, you feel pretty confident, and you should, but you should always have other people take a look at your resume as well for them to proofread it, just in case somebody's missing something, a dot here, an L there, an E there. So you definitely want to make sure that your resume is proofread as many times as possible. And then you also want to give a heads up to your references. So if an employer is looking for references and you're starting to look for work, you want to make sure that you're letting your references know in advance so they're not blindsided. And you definitely don't want to include references on your resume, but that's in the next slide. But you just want to keep them up to date. You want to say, I'm looking for work. Will you be able to provide me a good reference? And if they've agreed, then you've already given them the heads up, and that's really good. And then you also want to keep it up to date. So you want to make sure when you're writing your resume is definitely up to date. So what I always like to do is, in any position that I go into, the first thing I do after I start my day, when I come home, I update my resume. So any job that I start on my first day, I go to work, and then when I come home the first day, I update my resume with the new job that I'm in. I put in the title, the company name, and then what I do is under that job description, I start adding my responsibilities. So things that you're doing in that position. And the reason for that is a lot of times people, forget what they did in a specific position, or it just, you just kind of forget about what were your responsibilities, what were your tasks, what were you doing. So when you're writing all of those things as you're in that specific job, you're up to date. You already know what you're doing, so you're able to keep your resume up to date. So these are just some basic resume do's. And now I want to talk a little bit about resume don'ts. So you don't want to misrepresent your education or your job description or your job experiences and description. So you want to make sure when you're writing your resume, and that's why I say you want to make sure 100% that your LinkedIn and your resume are synced together and they're, matching. Because the last thing you want to do is misrepresent. So let's say if you don't have a bachelor's degree, don't mention that you do have a bachelor's degree. A lot of employers may want proof. Again, with references, don't say that you were a manager at a specific position when you were not a manager and you were a customer service representative, for example. So just, be who you are and be proud of that. Give reasons for leaving each job. So you want to make sure that if you were in a position for 1 month, I always say if something happened and you had to leave that position, either don't include that on your resume or have a really good reason of why you left the job, whether it was contract, whether it was a health situation or caring for a loved one. You want to make sure that you have a really good reason of why you left that job. If you can't really provide a good reason in the interview or kind of reflect on that in your resume of why you left that job so suddenly or in such a short period of time, that you want to make sure that you don't include it maybe on your resume. You don't want to get too personal. So don't get too personal. Keep it professional. A resume is a very formal document. It's a professional, formal document. So you want to make sure it's not too personal. You're not talking in slang or acronyms. You want to keep it as professional as possibly you can. And then worry about using exact dates. So don't worry about using exact dates. Giving an estimate is fine on your resume. A lot of people, for example, when they started the position and when they left the position, they usually just provide the year. A lot of people provide the month and year, but you don't have to go to the extent of including the day, month, year. The employers don't care about the day. As long as they have a rough estimate of when you started and when you finished the position, that should be fine. Don't experiment with crazy fonts. So like I said, this is a very formal document. So this is not the time for you to experiment with any crazy fonts or font sizes or formats and things like that. Resumes are very, professional, very simple. I've had students that have said, it's very boring. And that's true. Unless you're in graphic design or event planning or something, artistic like that, or you're an artist that you want to kind of represent that in your resume. If that's not the situation and you're looking for, customer service, administrative assistant, financial industry, yes, your resume is going to look boring, but that's good. It's supposed to be, short and sweet and to the point and very simple looking. And then you don't want to include your high school education if you're a college graduate or enrolled in a college, because they know that if you're in a college, university, or any other institute, you probably do have a high school degree, and they don't have to really know that, because it's pretty obvious. It's common sense. And then you don't want to include your GPA. So a lot of students, I understand that they're very proud of their GPA and they feel really, there's a lot of value to that. That's something maybe you could mention in the interview if they say, what is your biggest accomplishment, or what are you mostly proud of? But in your resume, you don't want to include your GPA because it doesn't really make a difference to them. It's definitely, not a school application, so they don't really give any value to including your GPA. And then list past salary information. So you definitely don't want to include how much you were making in your previous job or how much you're expected to have in your future jobs. So don't include anything in regards to salary. If they are wondering about that, or if they're wanting to ask you about that, then they will definitely ask you in the interview. So you don't need to include that in your resume. So these are just some brief, kind of snapshots of what to include in your resume and what not to include in your resume. But I encourage everybody to connect with us if you're wanting to come to Alexandra College, if you're currently a student or potentially a student with Alexandra College. I work specifically with Alexandra College students, so I encourage anybody interested in Alexandra College or a student to connect with us. And I also encourage everybody, whether you're a student or not, to visit us online at alexandracollege.ca, and then under Student Success, Career Advising, I've included some resources on our website that is accessible to everybody. So I highly encourage everybody to check out those resources. I think that they would be very beneficial. We have a resume sample, a resume template, and some power verbs that you could use in your resume that will make your resume more effective and more powerful, and more and some formatting information as well on our website. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to connect with us. I'm always happy to hear from anybody. I'm always here to help if you have any questions. And so that is the end of my presentation. Now I would like to, be open to any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for that presentation. I was looking for 5 do's and don'ts, but you more than delivered, so that's great. Thank you so much for sharing your presentation. Something that I wanted to tell the people who are watching is that Alexandra College also accepts the CAEL test. So that's a plus as well. CAEL Online, if you're in the places that CAEL Online is available in, you can take the CAEL Online, and then you can, it's part of your admission process for Alexandra College. Nilu, I had a couple of questions for you. In general, like owing to the pandemic and owing to the fact that everything is online now, and even before the pandemic, there was a lot of, when you apply for a job, they take you to a client, like a software client, who you had to enter your resume details again into. In this, and they also ask for a cover letter attachment. So I guess my question is it worth to enter all the information in their client, their software client, but then also attach your resume along with your cover letter?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yes, I think it's a very beneficial for you to upload that file and answer those questions basically. What I always do is I copy and paste that information that they're asking for from my resume. So I'm not rewriting anything, I'm not working on any additional documents. I'm just copy pasting it to make sure that it's exactly the same information. But I always like to upload my resume and cover letter as well, because I find that really, it shows the formatting style. So just in case, because sometimes the websites, for example, they might not have bulletin points or the font kind of gets thrown off or something like that. So they know that my original document was very professional, very, well formatted, so it doesn't misrepresent me and my application.
Great. So here's another question that I have. When you talk about references, now, if somebody is moving from one job to another, they have a reference. They know who they can go to. They can go to their colleagues. They can go to their manager. But if somebody is graduating, where do you suggest their sources of references come from?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. So their source of references can definitely come maybe from their instructors. So let's say, between 2 and 3 references would be enough. So usually what happens, I encourage the students to connect with their instructors so they could be a good reference for them to say, they have really good time management skills, or, they're really good with meeting deadlines, or, they have really good communication skills. So those are some of the things that most employers are looking for when they're reference checking. They want to know that the things that you've included in your resume is actually who you are. So I think an instructor would be a really good reference. And the other good reference would be a career advisor, because if I've worked with you, I know that you have certain skills that make you qualify. So I always say a career advisor or somebody from the registrar's office that's really been able to help you, meet with you one-on-one, and work with you during your schooling would be really good. Another thing I would highly recommend is volunteer work. That's why I'm a big advocate for international students that are coming new to Canada, to volunteer, because volunteer work allows you to first gain Canadian experience, and secondly, it allows you to have a reference. A lot of people that volunteer, they're looking for references, so volunteer work is also a great way to gain some references.
Absolutely. I'm also a huge advocate for volunteering. We, in fact, have an episode about volunteering, guys, in CAEL Live. If you want to go check that out, please do. All about the benefits of volunteering and how it can also help you with English language testing, like the CAEL test. Because you get a good kind of exposure to like speaking in Canada, replying, writing emails, etc., depending on what your industry is. Nilu, another question for you regarding resumes. Is it okay to put up a picture on my resume?
Yes, so I get this question a lot, and I see that a lot, and I would have to say definitely not. It's definitely not okay for you to include a picture on your resume. That's a huge no-no. No picture, no date of birth, no social insurance number, no marital status. Definitely do not include any sort of personal information. I understand that, like I said, when you're writing a CV in Europe or in the Middle East, it's very normal to include, your marital status or your social insurance number or something equivalent to that and a picture. But in Canada, we definitely stay away from this 100%. And like I said, you include only your education, your work experience, and your relevant skills. You don't include anything personal.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. It's also a question I've heard before, so I'm glad to hear the answer to that. Another question I have, and I think you already answered this in your presentation, Nilu, but if you could repeat it, it would be great. So a lot of the times, like I mentioned, a lot of the times when you're applying these days, you're going through a software client that may or may not be automated to look for the perfect candidate. So what are some things that a student can do in their resume to make sure that they're matching, I don't know, maybe keywords, or they're making sure that their resume is well aligned with a software client that's looking for them?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I actually teach in my resume workshops, is that when you are writing your resume, you want to make sure that you are including those keywords, because I always say, like a company such as Amazon, they may receive, 50 resumes per day for a specific job. So no employer is going to, review 50 resumes per day. It might be too difficult to do that. So they actually have scanning softwares. So they have specific softwares where they've kind of keyed in those keywords, and they say if a resume hasn't included these keywords, their resume automatically gets deleted and they're not viewed by an actual person. So a way that you could definitely do that is I like to create a T-chart, and this is, like I said, I explain this in my workshops, but just to give a very brief overview, a T-chart is basically a simple chart that on one side you have employers' requirements, and on one side you have my skills and qualifications. So what you do is you take a look at the job posting, you kind of go over all of the qualification and skills that the employer is looking for, copy paste that into the T-chart on one side, and then on the other side, really think about some of the skills and qualifications that you have and how those are matching, whether it's through work experience, volunteer work, education, personal life. I always say that students come to me and they say, well, I've never worked before, so I don't have time management skills. And I say, yes, you do. The fact that you manage your time on a regular basis to do, certain activities that you enjoy, go to class, meet strict deadlines, those are all, organizational skills, time management skills. These all are the skills that you have. And I like to say these are transferable skills. So transferable skills are skills that you've obtained in your personal or professional or educational life that you can transfer into any other aspect of your life, whether it's work or, education or anything like that. So in other words, really just copy and paste all the qualifications that the employer is looking for on one side and think, how you've obtained those skills on the other side and kind of create that T-chart and then use the T-chart in your resume.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. That's a tip that anybody who's watching this can use, not just graduate students. Okay, Nilu, we are coming towards the end of our show, but I'll ask you one last question, and something that I expect a lot of students coming to study here might have. How can one acknowledge the gaps in their career if they're coming as a student after working for a while, they've taken a break? What can they do to make sure that that gap is acknowledged?
Yeah, so you can definitely, there's two ways. So to be honest, there is no proper way to show this in your resume, but that's why I always say that's where a cover letter comes in. Because when you're writing a cover letter, you're able to explain a little bit more about your resume and why those gaps are, why you're applying for this position, or why you decided to go into this specific field and things like that. So you can definitely showcase that in your cover letter. And then the next step is also interview. So once you get to the interview process, they might just ask you, they'd say, I noticed that you weren't working for a year or 2 years or 6 months. Why is that? And that's when you can really explain why that gap is. In your resume, that's why I always say it's really important that you also submit a cover letter as well, because in a cover letter, you can, it takes your resume to the next level. You're able to further explain your resume in words that whether you weren't able to explain in your resume, if that makes sense.
Yes, it did. It did. Thank you so much. That's the end of our resume questions. I have a personal question for you, actually, before I let you go. I want to know if you can tell me what's your favorite thing about working with international students who are choosing to come to study in Canada and also make a career in Canada.
Yeah, definitely. My favorite thing is that at one point I was also an international student myself. So I came to Canada when I was 17, 18, and I went to college and then I went to university. So the reason why I like working with international students is because I totally understand their struggles and their challenges, and I had to figure out everything on my own. It was very, very difficult. So I really have a passion for helping international students specifically because I understand what they're going through. And I understand that sometimes being an international student, you might not have the confidence because you feel like I don't have any Canadian work experience or my English isn't that good. So I'm here to give you that confidence and to help you achieve your goals because I know you are qualified and you are, more than qualified for most positions out there. You just have to believe it and you have to gain that confidence.
Wonderfully said. I was also an international student, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But that was our last question. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Nilu. And your time here is really appreciated. And I'm sure prospective and current international students will find this very informative and helpful. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. It was great seeing everybody and talking to everybody. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So that was Nilu from Alexandra College. If you're watching this episode much later than it is at the moment, please drop your questions in the comments. We will still get back to you and see if we can answer that. We also provide CAEL test lessons on a separate playlist. It's called CAEL Prep with Brandy. We drop a lesson every week. This series is only made for people who are looking for CAEL test prep. Please check it out. We covered academic writing and reading so far. We also have some great news for you. The CAEL test can now be taken online in Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia. What this means is that you can take the CAEL test at home. We understand that during the pandemic, a lot of centers are closed and you're unable to get to the centers. So we provided an opportunity where you can apply to Canadian colleges and still have your chances with your English language test that you can now take at home. These 3 locations, along with USA and Canada, make up the 5 locations that can take the CAEL test online at home. A wonderful opportunity for you to start your journey to Canada right at home. Please also note that if you are an international student, you can be eligible for the CAEL scholarship. If you took the CAEL test in any of our available locations on or after July 2020, or if you're planning to take it in the near future, please do check us out. I will link our scholarship information in the description. If you have any doubts about your eligibility or the deadline, let me know in the comments below. Our next episode will be on Thursday, 18th of March at 11 a.m. PST. Please join us and also invite anybody else who's interested in studying in Canada. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for future videos. Until then, please stay safe and have a nice weekend. Bye.